I'm Gannon, farmer from Mingo, Iowa, and looking forward to being Iowa's next Secretary of Agriculture because I think that agriculture is so important to our state's economy, especially to rural Iowa, a place that is very dear to me. I think I've got the experience farming with my dad on a century farm and working for Secretary Vilsack for 8 years at USDA. Especially if the ag economy is a little soft going into the next couple of years, I'll bring the experience and the practical knowledge and the relationships with folks at USDA that will really help me do the job well for all Iowans. Well, profitability first and foremost, because we've got to make sure that our farmers are successful so that they can support all those businesses and small towns across the state. So I think that means getting Washington, D.C. to change what I think is an incoherent and mixed up trade policy. Also fixing biofuels policy so that we're not granting waivers to already profitable oil refineries. Those folks are doing well enough. It's farmers that are struggling right now. Longer term, I think we've got to invest in the kind of research at Iowa State that not only helps us become more productive as we try to feed a growing world population, but also at the same time so that we can take better care of our soil and water with advances in conservation research. And then we've also got to be figuring out what are the other things we can do with what we grow and raise. You know, last week I was very excited to see researchers at Iowa State announce that they figured out how to use soy oil, turn it into a wax that's biodegradable and can replace paraffin. So we can waterproof things with this. They've applied for a couple of patents. You know, someday in the not too distant future, I hope that that's a thriving Iowa company that's not only helping drive demand for soybeans, but also creating jobs all across rural Iowa. And then on top of that profitability piece and the importance of research, we've got to do more to protect our soil and water. Too many places in the state, we still see too much soil erosion, so we've got to figure out, okay, what are the incentives we can put in place? And I think that takes the next legislature and next governor passing and putting into effect the the Natural Resources and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, which 63% of Iowans supported in 2010, so that we can really have a dynamic source of funding, state, match it with federal, drive further investments from landowners and farmers, and attract that outside private investment that I think then becomes a very dynamic source of funding that we're seeing much more progress on the nutrient issues that Iowa has seen, but also it's taking care of the soil, it's improving the soil, and that's going to keep driving our productivity well into the future. Well, obviously those export markets are vital, and you know, the 8 years I worked at USDA, I sat through a lot of crop briefings. Never once in those crop briefings did I hear the words Russia and soybeans used together in the same sentence. But after China put those tariffs on our beans, there was a headline that said China to source record amount of beans from Russia. So that's the links they're going to go to so that they're not dependent on Iowa and U.S. soybeans. So we've got to figure out what are the other uses. How do we keep coming up with new uses for what we grow and raise so we're increasing demand here, as well as continuing to work to open those foreign markets, build those relationships that Iowa farmers, especially soybean farmers, have been so successful at building over the last 30 years, so that they know they're still going to be able to get that high quality soybean, whether it's a whole bean or whether it's some co-product, byproduct that is produced here in the state of Iowa. Making sure that even if we have another year or two of the trade situation that we're looking at right now, we as a state are doing all that we can to make sure that folks outside of Iowa and overseas know that we're still a great source for high quality, affordable soybeans.